I'm Robert Strand, Executive Director of the Center for Responsible Business. Each semester we partner with business and thought leaders to bring a series of events around topics of corporate responsibility and sustainability here to UC Berkeley. I'm here with Jeff Denby, co-founder and Chief Creative Officer of PACT, and Jeff was one of our panelists today during the Peterson Series here at Haas. So Jeff, welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Jeff, PACT was founded in 2009, and since the beginning, values was very much core to the company. Since then, you've grown immensely. Can you talk about how you've kept values in the company while scaling up so dramatically?
The whole point of starting PACT was to try to change the way that we made apparel. My experience before PACT was overseas in the supply chain, and through that very real experience, I discovered just how much better we could probably do this than we are. There was so much exploitation of people and the environment within that supply chain. And so I walked away from that experience wanting to start a company that existed solely because I felt like we needed to make clothes in a different way. I always say the world did not need another underwear and socks company. There are plenty of them out there, but the world needed a company like PACT.
The topic of today's Peterson Series was about living wages. Why would a company like PACT care about living wages?
In the garment supply chain, there is a massive amount of exploitation, starting with the cotton farmer at the very base of that supply chain, and then through every factory, every function, every process that happens to that cotton to turn it into a garment, there is exploitation. The way the system is set up, it's rigged against workers. And once you start to understand that, you realize that it's completely unfair. For us, it was super important because of the DNA of who we are and what we were trying to do, was to go in and find a way to work with a factory so that we could actually pay these workers what they deserve to be paid for their products or for their work, rather than trying to exploit the opportunity for cheap labor so that we could make cheap products to sell over here. So it's another piece of what fits with changing each little piece of the supply chain. And the reality is that like garment workers across the world are barely subsisting above poverty, and most of them live below the poverty line in the countries where they live. And this is not a sustainable way for developed countries or developing countries to become developed. It's not going to happen unless we have brands taking responsibility for how they're making stuff.
I heard you today during the Peterson event share some rather personal stories about connections by meeting the people that are in your supply chain that are halfway across the world, and you wouldn't always have the chance to actually put a face to this person. Can you speak to maybe the importance of that kind of humanism of the supply chain and what sort of relevance that has for driving what you do?
I think that the meeting your maker, so to speak, is absolutely the most important thing that you can do if you make something. To go back and see where it actually starts, you really start to realize that, like, oh, these are people. Like when I buy a pair of underwear or a t-shirt or whatever on the shelf in America, you know, I am actually affecting the life of a cotton farmer in the middle of India who I will never meet. I've taken executives from retailers over to go through the entire supply chain process, and it has completely changed them both as people and as executives. And they've gone back to their companies, taken the learning and the knowledge, that like the experience, and said, like, we need to do something, we need to do better, we need to have standards, we need to be making decisions based on where this stuff comes from.